So in this video, I wanted to talk about my favorite pocket notebooks of all time. To me, a pocket notebook is any notebook that is small enough to be with you all the time. Maybe it will literally fit in your pocket. Maybe that is like a coat pocket, maybe the pocket in your bag, maybe a jeans pocket, what have you. But these are all what I would consider to be pocket notebooks, and these are some of my favorites. It's not every one I have, but this is a pretty good selection from ones that I would consider to be in the running for the top models. If you're looking at sort of a canonical, like what pocket notebook, and you're asking what is a pocket notebook, I think the field notes would be a really good way to kind of get your feet wet, or just to get a good understanding of what a pocket notebook is. These are soft cover, so they could sit inside a pocket, like a shirt pocket or a jeans pocket. They are not too fat, so this is 48 pages. Then they are tough enough to stand up to day-to-day use. And then they have pretty nice paper. That's not a requirement of a pocket notebook, but it'll be important to me. And they're not too expensive. These things cost maybe $3 each, maybe a little bit more for a special edition. There are many field notes style notebooks like this Baron Fig, but there are other types of pocket notebooks as well. I would say probably one of the most popular ones outside of the field notes soft cover style is this. This is a Moleskine or Moleskine, however you want to say it. And this is similar in size, but it uses a hard cover and this sort of faux leather. So whether you go hard cover or soft cover, that's up to you. But I would say between the field notes variety and the Moleskine, then you have a really good understanding of what most people will be thinking when they think of a pocket style notebook. Both of these are completely solid choices if you want to stop right there. And this is kind of the obvious ones that most people will use. If you want to get into it, we'll run through each of these and we can kind of talk through some of my favorites. So let's pick out, we'll do the Moleskine just because it's very basic and there's not a lot of discussion needed around it. So this one has a hard cover. It's also available in a soft cover, but typically you would see the hard cover. It has a lot of little features. So features like reward pages and maybe a pocket in the back. Some of them have back materials. This one doesn't, but it might have like a inch to centimeter conversion or temperature scale or something like that. I don't like those features. I don't need them, but some of them have it. This one is sold in typically in line, but also graph paper and dot grid and some other stuff. The Moleskines are nice because they're very available and they're very good looking. This is a very dignified piece of paper to take out at a meeting, but I don't tend to love the paper. It's a little bit skinny for me, and you get a lot of bleed through as you write on it. One of the pocket notebooks that I wish got more attention were these Silvine. I think that's how you say it. It's Silvine. This is a British brand. They make a number of really great notebooks. Almost always they have this red cover. That's sort of their trademark type thing. And memo book is the size. Like if you buy a really large one, it's called a project book. Their pocket notebook is called the memo book. And there are other sizes. It's a very simple notebook, staple bound. So it's not at all fancy there. This cover is just kind of postboard. I definitely see I did some writing tests with this one. The Silvan notebooks are known, at least for me, they're known for having really excellent paper, just top-notch paper, has a lot of texture to it, and holds up well. In this writing sample, you could see I wrote with a Pilot V10 grip, which is a 1.0 millimeter rollerball or gel pen, something like that. And you can see through a little bit, but it's really not that bad. It's nice, strong paper, and it's really good to write on. It holds up well. So I think the Silvan memo book is a really nice way to go, and it's one of my favorites. The downside of this is it's not cheap, and it's typically hard to find in the US, but in Great Britain or in the UK or whatever, you could find these things fairly regularly. Of course, Field Notes is sort of a no-brainer for most people. This is like the brand that has taken over the pocket notebook size, and it makes sense because they're quite good. They're very stylish. This one has a wood type cover, kind of like a wood veneer, but that's, I think, a limited edition. I don't know if you can still buy these, but what you have here is fairly common. Sometimes they're staple bound like this, but usually, I think sometimes they're also, maybe not usually, but they're definitely also sewn bound, depending on which one you get. They have some materials here on the inset or the in cover, the covers, I guess, but nothing on the pages. And then the pages themselves, they use a pretty nice paper. I think their paper is sort of like, it's heavy, but it's a very absorbent paper, so you could get a lot of bleeding on it. So typically I don't love their paper, but I like their notebooks because they're skinny, they hold up well, they bend really nicely, and they always bounce back. So I think Field Notes is a really nice way to go. And while it is an obvious choice, I don't in any way think it's a poor choice. You know, the obvious choice is sometimes the right one. The Baron Fig notebook is typically, I think it's called the Baron Fig Explorer. I always forget their notebook. Their naming is very confusing. This is a limited edition Baron Fig, but Baron Fig has a Field Notes competitor, and this is one of them. They use similar paper, I would say, to Field Notes. It's a very absorbent paper on the heavy side. And maybe it's a little bit better than Field Notes, but it's not, I would say, an exceptional paper. They use just a pretty good paper. Their notebooks are sewn bound, which hold up really well over time. The stapling is fine, but if you lose one of those staples, then the notebook's pretty much shot. Whereas each little piece of each sewn piece, each hole will hold up on its own. You know, if it starts at one end, it will loosen over time, but it does hold up really well. So Baron Fig has some really nice pocket notebooks. I like their paper, and they tend to be pretty good looking notebooks overall. So it's definitely an option. Another pretty good pocket notebook is this. This is a Muji. I know it's unbranded, but it's from the brand Muji, M-U-J-I, which is a Japanese store. They sell all sorts of stuff, but they have very nice stationary goods. Muji notebooks are very cheap. This one probably cost under $2, maybe $2. You can see a little remnant of a sticker right there. And they use okay quality paper, not great. It tends to be very absorbent. But given the price of these notebooks, I'm always very happy with them, and I never regret buying them. If you have a Muji store by you, you really can't go wrong just going in the store and really stocking up. It won't be the best for fountain pens, and you will see sometimes little minor imperfections like that, but overall, they're really, really great notebooks, and it's dollar for dollar, really hard to beat. They just don't have the style of something like Field Notes, which is like maybe not incredibly stylish, but there's a brand associated with it. Everyone's like, oh yeah, Field Notes, those are cool. The Muji stuff, once you remove the sticker, will have no branding. It'll be very plain. So it's not for everyone there. I know some people like the Traveler's notebook style, and this is Story Supply. So it's not a true Midori one. This is just a similar one. Traveler's notebooks, I would say what you're looking at really more is not the paper, but it's so much the style of the notebook. So if you want the leather cover, and then you could figure out what paper you want in there, with many types of papers are sold in Traveler style notebooks. So I'll keep it in this conversation, but I don't think it really makes sense, because that's more talking about a style of notebook than it is a notebook itself. So I've done a few videos on the Traveler's notebooks, and generally I like the idea of it, but it's more involved than I want to be with my notebooks. I typically like something very simple that's going to hold up over time. It's going to last as long as it lasts, and then I'm either going to throw it out or store it. The Traveler's notebook, again, you're like committing to the leather. There's like flaps going on and ropes and stuff. So it's typically not what I want on me day to day, and it's never something I would put into a pocket. If anything, I'd put into a bag. Then we have something like this. This is like a smaller brand. You don't see it around too much, White Lines. This is just, I would say, like a very cool notebook. It's like from a boutique brand. It's made in Sweden. It has a this sort of, almost like a rubberized cover. It's something you would find on a nicer paperback book. So it is a standard, or like glue bound, I guess I would say. Nice cover. Has all this unnecessary writing on it, which is like, the brands do that to like say why you should spend more money on a whitelines.se notebook with the perfect binding and lay flat design and all the other features. I'm always sort of drawn into this, because I'm always thinking that someone's going to figure out how to do a better job and it has some really cool features. Like you could see, it's actually a gray page with white lines, no numbering. It actually says White Lines. That's the name of the company, so it makes sense why they do it. But it's really unnecessary for me to get such a fancy notebook. That said, I can't usually resist buying them. Nice paper, good paperweight. That sort of absorbent paper that we've been seeing, and that's fairly common in these notebooks, unless you're going into a specialty design, which is what we'll get into next. So now we're getting into the specialty papers, and this is mostly going to come from Japanese brands. In this case, I have the Hobonichi Tekko. This is a planner, not necessarily a notebook, but they also have non-planner designs. So just kind of bear with me on this. What you're doing here is you have also a softcover notebook with many, many more pages, even though the width, say the width is, or the depth is twice that of the field notes, you might have 4 times the pages because these ones use really skinny really skinny Tomoe River paper. So each individual page is maybe a third or half the thickness of a page from a field notes or something like that. These are planners, so you have very extensive materials in the front and the back, as well as highly structured pages. If you get the blank version, it's just a standard grid or line, depending on which one you buy, so you don't have to worry about all that other stuff. With using fancy paper like this, it increases the price of these very drastically. This one might sell for maybe $30 instead of $3, maybe $25, something like that. You get more pages, obviously, because you're using that high-end paper. And the skinniness of the paper does mean that you can have some show through, even if you're being careful. You know what I mean? So you have to be careful about what paper. With this paper, you have to be careful what pens you're using. So you can see here from this old writing sample, something like a really thick ballpoint may not be ideal, whereas a skinny gel or a skinny extra fine ballpoint might be pretty unobtrusive on the other page. But if you're going to use a thick gel pen or something that really pokes into the paper, it won't be ideal. So you have to be careful about what you write with. So these are very cool. Again, some of them will have very structured insides with lots of information and materials on the back that you don't need. But if you buy the blank version, it doesn't have that. Then you're just gonna be paying a lot more for that different paper type. Typically, I would say it's not worth it, but I do have some of these, the not online, but the unstructured, just notebook style. It's called the Hobonichi, but it's no longer within the Tekko series. They're quite cool, but I would say typically not worth the money. Lastly, this is also a specialty one. This is an MD paper, which is a cotton paper from Midori. And this has some, it's one of those specialty Japanese lines. You can see it has this cool wax paper cover. It comes with this little insert here. Eventually you'll just take that off. You don't need it, and you'll just have a really nice notebook. You can see it has that really cool cloth binding. It has an imprint here, reminding you that you're using this very great Midori MD paper, which I really like. And then inside, in this case, it's the grid. It is lay flat design, which is quite nice. It has somewhere in here, it has a little ribbon so you can keep your page. This one does not have really extensive materials in the front or back. There's some explanation about what's going on, but that's it. There's no calendar or look up reference material. It's just a really nice notebook. And you could see, this one sells for maybe $20, so it's on the high end, but you get a really nice cover, cloth binding. You get a sort of an opening page or a title page. You could put down some basic material. This is a very heavy paper. Then you get into sort of the standard Midori MD cotton paper, which is really beautiful paper, great with any pen or pencil, and it will work really nicely with fountain pens. And again, it has a lay flat design, which is really an important feature for many people, particularly lefties, where the pages can pop up and really mess things up for you. And it has that ribbon for holding your page. So you pay some more, maybe even a lot more, but you get a whole lot more. And this one is quite nice. I like this one a whole lot. And I've done some testing, I think, on the channel with Midori MD paper before, but this is really nice. It will hold up to almost any gel pen or fountain pen or ballpoint or pencil. You can see it through a little bit, but really not that bad. And this light blue is a pretty tough ink for these papers to deal with. So you get a much thicker paper than you do with something like the Hobonichi. The notebook is fatter and it has less pages than the Hobonichi, but I would say the actual writing experience is much, much nicer. So, get all these notebooks back. If you are looking for the best possible pocket notebook, again, you have your specialty ones, which I think by now you should know if those are the ones you want or not. They're very cool. Typically, I would say not the right choice for most people. You have your field notes style, which I would say would be sort of like these four rather. And out of the field notes style, typically I would say the Sylvaner is very cool and they have my favorite paper, but generally speaking, I would say most people would be happiest just getting the field notes. Field notes has all sorts of special editions and state specific ones and letterpress variety and other stuff now. They do a really nice job. And while the paper isn't my favorite, the notebooks hold up really well and there's a whole fun field notes ecosystem. I would say this is really the best way to go within what I would consider to be a true pocket notebook or memo book. Then you have your sort of boutique notebooks like this White Lines. I would say these are very cool, but they tend to be hard to find. Like if you find it and you buy it, then you want to buy it again, you might be out of luck, and they typically are overpriced. So I would say like going with something too boutique-y is fun, but generally you could set yourself up for failure. The Moleskine and other hard covers I don't like for pocket books. Pocket notebooks, not pocket books, that's different. For pocket notebooks, I just don't think it's as pocketable. It'd be fine in a jacket pocket or like cargo pants or whatever, but really not my favorite. And then again, I'm not a giant fan of the Moleskine paper. If anything from Moleskine, you could buy a Cahir, which is a Cahir notebook would be a soft cover from the same company, more like this Muji here. So their Cahir ones are good. They use slightly different paper. So I would go with that over traditional Moleskine. This is called the Moleskine Classic. And then lastly, the Traveler's Company Traveler's Notebook. These are nice and they use Midori paper. If you buy a legit one from Traveler's Company, as I reviewed on the channel a couple months ago or weeks ago. But again, this is more about the notebook ecosystem and design than it is the actual notebook. So by now, I think you would already know which ones you want. So I think that should about cover it. I hope this really gives everyone a deep dive into pocket notebooks and which way to go. And then if you're confused by all this or it's just too much information and you're still watching, I would say just get some field notes and it's probably going to solve the problem for you. So thanks for watching.